property and committing these crimes on the property, either to inflict harm to the family or the people living there. Doesn't necessarily have to be the farmer, it could be the farm workers as well, or to damage the property with the aim of disrupting farming activities. So for example, domestic abuse or domestic violence on farms are excluded from the definition.
All right, so you do have people who own farms but aren't active in terms of agricultural activities. So the definition does not include them.
Yes, if it's a farm, it would include them, but the definition also looks at rural areas that are zoned as agricultural property. So, for example, small holdings will be included as farm attacks or counted if there's an attack on a small holding if it's agricultural property. If it's just someone who's living there, if it's only residential and that person is attacked in his house, then it doesn't count as a farm attack.
All right. Just before we look at today's marches, let's just focus a little bit on statistics that you recorded 295 farm attacks and 52 murders in 2016. And just now in 2017, we've seen over 340 attacks and 65 murders. Is this what really worries you as AfriForum?
Yes, actually there's been more than 70 murders since the beginning of this year, which means that for the last 6 years, actually since 2011, there's been a steady increase in farm attacks and farm murders every year. So we are very concerned about this because an attack on a farmer or a farm attack is not only an attack on an individual, it's an attack on a food producer and it's an attack on an employer. And it has repercussions that are much bigger than simply the family and the close immediate circle of people who knew that farm. It has bigger implications for the country as a whole.
So are you saying you're much more worried about farm attacks than attacks that happens to ordinary South African citizens?
Well, I wouldn't say that. That's like asking, are we more worried about rhino poaching than we are about the poaching of kudus?
All right, maybe let me just rephrase my question in this manner. Is it just farmers that are being murdered in South Africa?
No, it's definitely not just farmers who are being murdered. But we are saying that farm attacks need to be prioritized. The same way it's not just rhinos who are being poached. And women and children are not the only victims of violent crime. But what we are dealing with here is we have a very unique crime. It's very unique in terms of the frequency, it's very unique in terms of the brutality, because we find in many of these cases that people are tortured for hours. And it's very unique in terms of the role that farmers have to play, which I've elaborated on. And also, fourthly, it's very unique because farmers live far away from police stations and they are far away from their neighbors. So based on this, we say that there must be a unique counter strategy. But the moment you start talking about farm attacks, there's a reluctance to prioritize this crime.
Yeah.
And we don't know why this is. It seems as if it's politically incorrect to call for the prioritizing as farm attacks.
But what's AfriForum's take on farmers or farm workers abuse? I mean, many people have voiced their concerns on the way AfriForums do things, saying that you always talk about farmers that are being attacked and murdered, but you really mention issues of workers who are also being abused by farmers. Let's take into consideration what happened in the Northwest Province, where Matomola Museu was murdered. There is a recent case of Tebo Khondlovu who was apparently shot, killed, and fed to crocodiles, allegedly so by farmers. So what do you say about those things? Have you ever said anything, for example, with the coffin case as well?
Yes, well, we were very outspoken about the coffin case, and we condemn those cases. But this is exactly the problem that we have. Is we've had almost 2,000 farm murders in this country, and every single time we start talking about farm murders, the reaction is immediately, yes, but what about farm workers? Yes, farm workers are just as important. Farm workers are also attacked in these attacks. But when we're talking about rhino poaching, no one's saying, yes, but what about kudus? When we're talking about violence against women and children, no one's saying, what about men? But so it seems as if it's so politically incorrect to want to protect South Africa's farmers that we always need to divert the conversation, and this is something that we have a very big problem with. We're not saying protect farmers because no one else matters. No one has ever said that. We're just saying that this is a crime that has unique repercussions for the country as a whole. We need to do something about this crime. But we're so busy trying to deflect the conversation from people who are being tortured in their homes that we're not able to solve this problem.
Yeah, and AfriForum launched a civil motion of no confidence in the police minister, Fikile Mbalula. Please elaborate on this, because I think a few weeks ago we had you here on the very same show whereby we were talking about the National Rural Safety Strategy that's been implemented. So do you no longer have trust in the strategy?
Yes, well, the Minister of Police, Fikile Mbalula, has been minister for 7 months. More than 30 weeks, about 215 days, more or less. And in that 7 months, in that more than 200 days, the only thing he's done was to organize a press conference where he said that he would make an announcement within a week. That was more than a month ago. No announcement was made. In those 7 months, the minister has done basically nothing with regard to farmer tax. Yesterday, he issued a press statement about farmer tax. So we were so glad to hear that the minister issued a press statement, only to find that what he said in his statement was that people who protest will be arrested. So it's very clear to us that the Minister of Police is part of the problem. The Minister of Police, this is not a priority for the Minister of Police. He's doing lip service. There's a difference between saying to journalists, yes, I'm concerned about this, and actually going out and doing something about the problem.
But what exactly would you like to see the minister doing?
Yeah, well, we're saying that these attacks must be prioritized, and by that we mean that as a first step, there has to be statistics released annually. But for it to be a priority crime, we're not saying it must be on an agenda somewhere on a committee that has a meeting 4 times a year. For it to be a priority crime, we mean there must be a focused counter strategy. There must be a rural safety strategy that mentions farm attacks as a particular problem, that deals with a particular counter strategy, and that's a basic policing principle. We're not saying farmers must be protected because they're more special than anyone else. We're simply saying the basic police principle that when you deal with a unique crime, you need to develop a unique counter strategy, has to be implemented. That's all we're asking for. This is a unique crime. It's unique in several ways, which I've mentioned, and therefore there needs to be a unique counter strategy. We cannot protect farmers in the same way that we're trying to protect people living in the cities.
All right, and you've decided to embark on a march today in the Western Cape, in Pretoria, and some parts of Vereeniging here in Gauteng. What happens now? Because you're not happy with what the minister is doing, you're not happy with the farmer tax. What happens next?
Well, let me just say this initiative today, everyone's talking about Black Monday, that's why I'm wearing black as well. It's not an initiative of AfriForum. It was sparked spontaneously after the murder of Hubert Conradi on a farm near Stellenbosch. And so people are wearing black across the country today to show their grief and their condolences to the families. And today there are several events across the country. We will be hosting a moment of silence in Pretoria for our staff and some friends of ours, but we do know that it's happening across the country. But in terms of what should be done now, there's 2 things. One is the police and the Department of Police in particular would need to come to the table and tell us what they plan on doing against this problem. And secondly, and I dare say more important than that, is communities need to become more involved. People need to be more vigilant, they need to look after their safety better, and they need to become involved. They need to become involved with safety initiatives, they need to start driving patrols, they need to initiate radio contact with each other, and we as AfriForum are putting a lot of resources and emphasis into that, in getting people to look after their safety more constructively.
All right, Ernst, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us. Ernst Roots is the Deputy CEO of AfriForum, talking to us about today's farmers and ordinary South Africans across South Africa having decided to rally together and wear black to unite against farm killings. Talk to us. What's your reaction to the interview, of course, and your take on this farmer tax at Moneyline SABC is our Twitter handle. Let's take a break here, Moneyline.